Okay, so my phone just reached maximum capacity, and so I can't record anymore on it. We're jumping right into a new recording. So I'll start where we left off. We're talking about the business model of NPEs. These companies, they acquire a lot of patents, they wait for an industry to develop a technology, and they lie in wait, and as soon as this industry has put enough money into it where a patent on this technology would be indispensable, they start suing. What they'll do is they'll combine a bunch of these companies together in one lawsuit, and they'll sue them in one court. And they try to take advantage of the economics behind these lawsuits. Okay, so let's talk about what Congress has done to address this problem. Congress passed the America Invents Act in 2011. In passing this act, Congress focused solely on addressing the business practices of NPEs. The business practice in particular that was addressed was the practice of joinder. This is like what I previously discussed when these companies join a bunch of lawsuits together. Before you could just do it, you could join a bunch of lawsuits together and that was fine. Now you can't. But the America Invents Act did nothing to address software itself. In fact, it made the situation worse because now you may not be allowed to join a lot of lawsuits together, but at the same time, this increased the overall number of lawsuits. Okay, let's talk about the 3 Supreme Court decisions on software patents. Those 3 decisions were Belinsky v. Kapos, Mayo v. Prometheus, and Alice Corp v. Cialis Bank. Alright, all of these suits talked about software patents. All of these suits were really silly because the Supreme Court, instead of deciding to make an overreaching large decision that could affect all software, it made very specific, minute decisions. Each time a federal district court tried to use a different test to determine what was patent subject matter eligible, the Supreme Court said yes, that was allowed, but they had to make a more refined test, but did not give any guidance on how to do that. So basically, business was still as usual. All right, at this point, I'd like to start talking about my 3 legal reforms. What can we do to combat software patents? All right, so the 3 possibilities are actually kind of interesting, and they're untested, I will say. So there's very little research, and mostly because comes from what I talked about with professional lawyers. The first solution would be to completely eliminate patents, the software patents. The second solution would be to have what they call a friend of the court, a court-appointed official that guides judges in making decisions on software-related cases. And then finally, the last one would be to establish courts that deal only with patents. So let's talk about the viability of these solutions. Eliminating patents and software patents in general is not a viable solution because there is a large amount of companies that rely on software patents to do business. Small businesses need these patents so that big businesses like Apple or Intel can't simply copy what they're doing and get away with it, and they had no recourse. Secondly, why is it not a good idea to have a friend of the court, somebody who is appointed as a court official? It's not a good idea to do this because the friend of the court is not a completely unbiased party, and the question then becomes, how much did this court official influence the judge's decision? And then the final reform is the most viable, and that is to establish patent courts. Now, this is the most expensive of all of them, and it would require an act of Congress, but at the same time, it's the one that gives people the most room with wiggle. It allows you to still take people to court for violating your rights, but at the same time, it doesn't eliminate the ability for people to produce technology. Okay, so with that, I'd like to open up the floor with any questions. Yes, go ahead. Question.
Has anyone ever considered the impact that either any of these solutions could have on the patent industry? Could they hurt innovation the same way that patent trolls do?
So, the first solution that I talked about, eliminating software patents in general, yes, it could hurt the technology industry. When we think of industry, we think of big business and small business. So big business in general has never liked patents or software patents because they can afford to operate without them. Small businesses, though, need these patents. For instance, if you made some kind of computer program that was really, really useful, and then Apple copied that, if you're a small business, you can't compete with Apple because they have a huge market share. But if you have a patent, you can sue Apple and they're going to pay you. And they have to stop doing what they're doing. That's one way. If you eliminate software patents, that's a form of recourse that small businesses would no longer have. It would favor the big businesses. If you had a friend of the court, that would cause a lot of headaches because the question becomes how neutral is this party? And then the last one, the biggest issue is the cost on taxpayers, and on top of that, the backlog that would occur because there's a large number of patent suits being filed.